My name is Lucy Collins, and at 32 years old, the first thing I noticed when I pulled into the driveway was a car I didn't recognize. My pulse quickened, but I told myself it was nothing, maybe a neighbor's visitor. I had come home early, earlier than expected, thanks to a canceled flight. My body ached from the long day, but there was something in the air that made my stomach twist. The house was eerily quiet. As I stepped inside, every instinct screamed that something was wrong. I slid off my shoes, careful to make no noise. The scent, perfume I didn't recognize, hit me before I reached the staircase. My hand trembled slightly as I touched the railing, listening. From upstairs came soft, familiar sounds, too familiar to be harmless. My heart stopped. I froze. For a long, suspended second, I just breathed, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Then the mental hammer fell. It's him, Stephen, with someone else. I pulled my phone from my bag, fingers shaking. My mind clicked into automatic mode, record, audio, evidence. Nothing emotional yet, just facts. Then, steady steps up the stairs. My bedroom door closed. I knocked once, then again. "Lucy!" His voice cracked, unfamiliar even coming from him. I didn't answer, I just opened the door. The scene that greeted me was surreal. Stephen, my husband of 6 years, pale and wide-eyed, trying to pull up his pants. Behind him, a younger woman scrambled, hair mussed, eyes darting toward me with panic. I blinked, my mind a storm of disbelief and fury. "You're home early," he stammered. "Yes," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "And who is she?" It just happened," he blurted, running a hand through his hair. "One mistake, just one night. I swear it's not what you think." I stepped closer, eyes scanning him like he was a case study in betrayal. "It looks exactly like what it is, Stephen. You brought someone into our bed." His mouth opened, closed, and words finally spilled. "We drank too much. It didn't mean anything. I didn't plan it." I watched the younger woman bolt past us, fumbling for the door. I didn't stop her. The sound of the front door slamming reverberated through the house, but it did nothing to silence the storm in my chest. "Please, Lucy," he said, grabbing my arm. "It's just one mistake. One night. You can forgive one night, right?" Forgive one night. The words bounced around the room like a cruel echo. My hand dropped from his grasp, calm settling over fury like ice. "Pack," I said. "You're staying somewhere else tonight. Lawyers can sort out the rest." His face went white, then flushed, then twisted in confusion. "You can't kick me out," he said. "This is my house, too." I raised an eyebrow. "Check the deed, Stephen. And remember that prenup you signed 6 years ago. The one that says if you cheat, you forfeit your claim to marital assets and owe me $500,000? I saw the color drain from his face. His lips moved, but no words came out. I turned away, letting the silence do its work. I walked into my office, shutting the door behind me, and let the adrenaline give way to focus. I opened the safe, pulled out the prenup, and laid it on the desk. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't crying. Not yet. I was calculating. Everything I had built, the company, the investments, the life we shared, couldn't be destroyed by this. Not without consequences. I replayed the scene upstairs over and over, noticing details, the perfume, the way he looked at her, the subtle panic in his movements. Each detail was a thread in the pattern I was beginning to unravel. By sunrise, I had pored over bank statements, credit card charges, and hotel receipts. Nothing yet confirmed multiple infidelities, but patterns were beginning to emerge. My stomach was in knots, but the knots carried clarity. This wasn't a one-time mistake. Something told me Stephen had been doing this longer than he admitted. I called my lawyer before the office opened. "I need to see you immediately," I said, voice tight but controlled. "It's urgent. I have proof my husband has cheated." Within the hour, I had a meeting. We went through the prenup clause, the audio recording, and the suspicious charges I had started to track. He nodded, expression serious. "Lucy, this is airtight. The prenup is enforceable. You have clear evidence. Courts will uphold this." The weight of the situation pressed down on me. The betrayal, the shock, the heartbreak. It was all there, but beneath it, a fire burned, the drive to protect myself, to enforce what we had both agreed upon 6 years ago. I remembered every discussion, every argument, every lawyer meeting when we signed that document. I wasn't cold. I was prepared. I had worked for over a decade building everything I had. He chose to betray me. Now, he would face the consequences. I didn't know yet how many women there had been, how many nights, how many moments of deceit. But I would find out. And when I did, justice would follow. Not the messy, emotional justice of revenge, but the precise, unyielding justice of the law. For now, I sat in my office as the sun rose, the house silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and my own steady breathing. The first battle had been won simply by catching him. The war, however, had only just begun. The house was quiet now, almost eerily so. Stephen had left, and the younger woman was gone. I was alone with my thoughts, and my suspicion that this wasn't a one-time mistake. The calm in the house contrasted sharply with the storm raging inside me. I sat at my desk, laptop open, and took a deep breath. Step 1. Evidence. I started with the obvious, our joint accounts. Every charge, every withdrawal, every odd payment. There were gifts I didn't recognize, hotel reservations with cryptic references, charges at restaurants I hadn't been to. My stomach tightened with each discovery, but I forced myself to stay objective. If I could track it, I could prove it. A hotel in another city, booked 3 months ago. A fancy dinner 2 weeks later, charged to the card. A boutique gift shop, receipts totaling thousands. Patterns started emerging, almost like footprints leading me straight to the truth. And then, a hotel reservation from 6 months prior, one I hadn't expected. My heart sank. It wasn't just a one-night mistake. I called my lawyer again, fingers barely shaking as I explained what I had found. Audio, transactions, dates, every detail, I said, my voice steady but edged with anger. We need to act fast. He listened carefully. Lucy, the prenup is airtight. You have everything you need. Courts will enforce this, but you need to document everything meticulously. Dates, locations, amounts, everything. I spent the rest of the day compiling evidence. Hotel bookings, credit card statements, bank transfers, all organized, time-stamped, and ready. Each piece of evidence added to a mounting case. Stephen's repeated betrayal, a deliberate pattern, not a random lapse. And the emotions, I didn't allow them to control me. I had felt shock, disbelief, hurt, rage, and humiliation. Now I channeled all of it into calculation. A part of me mourned the marriage we had, or what I thought we had. Another part simmered with quiet fury. Stephen had been living a double life while I poured my heart and mind into building a business, into building a life we shared. And now I was left to sort the wreckage. By the second day, I had enough information to confront him again. But I didn't rush. I waited, letting the tension build, letting him wonder. Every message, every meeting, every excuse he had offered replayed in my mind. I saw the cracks, the lies, the patterns of deceit. I thought about how he had begged me before. It's just one mistake, Lucy. You can forgive me, right? Forgive? I laughed quietly, bitterly. Forgiveness without accountability was useless. If he had truly cared, he would have never crossed that line. Not once, not twice, not a dozen times. The evidence told the real story. Stephen's world was a web of lies and indulgences, funded in part by our joint resources. I realized something crucial. The prenup was more than just a contract. It was my shield, my armor, my way to ensure that betrayal didn't come without consequences. I scheduled a formal meeting with my lawyer. We went over everything, point by point, every transaction, every hotel booking, every suspicious pattern. This is stronger than you think, he said, leaning back in his chair. Not only does this enforce the prenup, but it also proves a pattern of behavior. This isn't a single lapse, it's multiple breaches, and the law takes that seriously. I nodded, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sorrow. There was no joy in catching him at this, only the grim satisfaction of truth. Late that night, I found myself scrolling through old messages, dates, and photos. I wasn't looking for emotional closure. I was verifying, double-checking, leaving no stone unturned. Each discovery tightened my resolve. Stephen had built a life of lies while I built a business, a career, a life that was now fully my own, but he had no idea how carefully I planned to protect it. A small part of me wondered if he would fight, if he would try to weasel out of the prenup, argue it was unenforceable, claim he hadn't understood, plead remorse. I let myself smile quietly. That was predictable. He had chosen his path, and he would face it. I thought about the next steps: confrontation, legal enforcement, and the court battle. I imagined his face when he realized that all his excuses, all his charm, all his pleas would be useless against the evidence I had gathered. And in that moment, I realized something even deeper. This wasn't just about money or legal enforcement. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my power, my life. He had underestimated me. He thought betrayal would break me. He was wrong. I sat back in my chair, rubbing my temples. The documents spread out before me were more than proof. They were the key to control in a situation where he had tried to dominate through deceit. Tomorrow I would call him, not to negotiate, not to plead, but to confront with clarity, precision, and absolute authority. He would hear nothing but the facts. And the facts were undeniable. He had betrayed me repeatedly, used our resources to facilitate it, and now he would pay the consequences. I closed the laptop, letting the tension leave my shoulders in a long exhale. The storm was coming, but for the first time since discovering him with her, I felt calm. The calm of someone who knows that, no matter how dark the betrayal, the next moves are theirs alone. Outside, the city slept. Inside, I plotted. Stephen would wake tomorrow into a world of accountability he hadn't imagined, and I would be the one holding the map. I didn't call Stephen immediately. I let the night stretch into early morning, letting the weight of his betrayal settle fully. When I finally dialed his number, it wasn't to plead, yell, or beg. It was to confront, with facts, evidence, and precision. "Stephen, I have everything," I said calmly, almost eerily so. "Audio, transactions, dates, hotel reservations. This isn't one night. It's a pattern, and we need to talk, through our lawyers." There was silence on the other end, followed by a whisper of disbelief. "Lucy, I can explain. It's not what you think." I let him speak for a moment, letting the lies tumble out. Then I interrupted. "You've lied for years. You've spent marital funds on multiple affairs. The prenup you signed 6 years ago is about to become very real for you." He stammered, excuses spilling out in a desperate cascade. "I didn't mean... I can make it right. It was one mistake. You can forgive me. Please, just one chance." I leaned back in my chair, listening but not reacting. Forgiveness was meaningless without accountability. He had crossed boundaries repeatedly, and each time had deliberately hidden it. Every hotel, every gift, every transaction was a thread in a tapestry of betrayal. The next day, I met with my lawyer, presenting everything I had meticulously collected: receipts, bank statements, emails, audio recordings. Each piece was laid out like evidence in a courtroom drama. "This isn't a single lapse," I said, pointing to a series of hotel charges over 2 years. "This is a repeated pattern, with marital funds facilitating each encounter." My lawyer nodded gravely. "This strengthens your case immensely. The prenup is enforceable, and now we also have grounds to claim dissipation of assets." The thought of seeing Stephen squirm didn't thrill me. It was a small, satisfying acknowledgement of justice. The real satisfaction came from the clarity I had gained. Betrayal didn't have to destroy me. I could turn it into control, into action, into reclamation of my life. A week later, the first formal confrontation took place at the lawyer's office. Stephen arrived, eyes wide, nervous energy radiating off him. He tried charm, excuses, emotional manipulation. "Lucy, it was just a mistake. You can forgive one night, right?" he pleaded, voice shaking. I met his gaze steadily. "It wasn't one night, Stephen. It was multiple nights. And now you face the consequences you willingly agreed to 6 years ago," he faltered. This is insane. You're destroying everything. This is over a contract. What about love? What about us?" I leaned forward. "Love is meaningless when it's a lie. And us was already destroyed the moment you brought someone else into our bed, repeatedly." His lawyer interjected, attempting to minimize the penalty. "The clause is excessive. One instance, maybe, but multiple, and $500,000? I handed over the compiled evidence. "Multiple instances, $500,000 per the contract, and an additional $15,000 for dissipation of assets. Everything documented, verifiable, undeniable." Stephen's face went pale. "You can't. This isn't fair. We can negotiate." I shook my head. "No negotiation. You chose this path. You knew the consequences. You signed the contract. You violated it." The tension in the room was palpable. Stephen's excuses grew desperate, emotional pleas tangled with anger. But I remained calm, each word measured, each gesture controlled. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to his manipulations. I was dictating the pace, the tone, the reality. Over the next few weeks, the legal battle escalated to court. Stephen's lawyer tried every tactic, claiming duress, exaggerating the severity of the penalty, arguing unconscionability. But the judge listened patiently, reviewing every document, every piece of evidence. Lucy, the calm, precise, and methodical, was the force in the courtroom. I let the evidence speak, my emotions carefully shielded, my presence commanding respect. The court date arrived. Stephen's lawyer made a final plea. Your Honor, my client acknowledges mistakes, but the financial penalty will impact her for decades. We asked for mercy. The judge cut him off. Counselor, your client signed a legally binding contract explicitly outlining these consequences. She had independent representation. She understood the terms. She violated them. The court enforces contracts. Motion denied. Stephen's face went slack. Words failed him. I felt a flicker of sadness, not for myself, but for the version of him I had once loved. That man was gone, replaced by someone who had deliberately betrayed and manipulated. Outside the courtroom, he tried to reach me, desperate for a last-minute negotiation, a chance at absolution. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. His lawyer, exhausted, nodded to me as a silent acknowledgement. The battle was over. I had won. And yet the victory was bittersweet. Betrayal leaves scars that legal victories cannot erase, but it also leaves lessons, boundaries, clarity, and the power to protect oneself. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt a quiet liberation. The storm of deceit had passed, and I was standing in the aftermath, stronger, wiser, and in control. The legal battle was just one part of reclaiming my life. There would be no reconciliation, no attempts to salvage a relationship built on lies. My focus was forward, rebuilding, protecting, and embracing the life I had fought so hard to create. Stephen had underestimated me. He had thought betrayal would leave me shattered. Instead, it had sharpened me, clarified my priorities, and revealed the strength I had always possessed. And the next chapter of my life, free from deception, free from manipulation, and fully mine, was just beginning. The final divorce hearing was quiet, almost anticlimactic compared to the storm leading up to it. Stephen sat across from me, a shadow of the man he had once been, defeated, pale, silent. His lawyer fidgeted with papers, casting nervous glances at the judge, clearly aware this was the end of the line. The judge reviewed the documents with careful attention. The prenup, the evidence of repeated infidelities, the dissipation of marital funds. Everything was meticulous, undeniable. Counselor, the judge said to Stephen's attorney, your client agreed to the terms knowingly and with independent counsel. She violated them. The court enforces this agreement. Motion denied. Stephen's lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. I sat back, calm, almost detached, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Satisfaction for justice served, sorrow for the love and trust that had been lost. The judge turned to Stephen. All marital assets are awarded to the petitioner. Personal belongings, cars, and personal items remain with the respondent. Financial penalties, as specified in the contract, are enforced, including reimbursement for dissipation of assets. Stephen's eyes widened, then darted toward me. He opened his mouth. I ignored him. Outside the courtroom, there was no drama, no confrontation. He tried one last time, a feeble plea for negotiation, but I didn't respond. His lawyer, defeated, whispered something, and he slunk away. The weight of his deception, years of lies, manipulation, and betrayal, had crumbled around him. I took a deep breath, letting the tension leave my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt a clarity I hadn't known in years. The legal battle had been brutal, emotionally exhausting, but the outcome was just, precise, and empowering. Later, as I walked through my office, I glanced at the files, evidence, legal documents, receipts, recordings, all proof, not just of Stephen's betrayal, but of my own strength. Each piece was a reminder. Betrayal has consequences. Lies have consequences, and choices once made cannot be undone. The first payment arrived weeks later, $20,500, automatically deposited from wage garnishment. I smiled, not out of greed, but out of validation. Each payment was a tangible acknowledgement that contracts mattered, that actions carried consequences. I set the money aside in a separate account, part investment, part symbol of regained control. Friends reached out cautiously, some supportive, some judgmental. But I no longer needed validation. I had been through the worst of betrayal and emerged intact, focused, and fully in command of my life. I sold the house shortly afterward. Too many memories, too much shadow from the past. Downtown condos offered a fresh start. Modern, neutral, and entirely mine. Every step I took was deliberate, reclaiming not just space, but autonomy. People asked if I felt guilty, if I thought the punishment too harsh. The answer was simple: no. I didn't create the consequences. He did, when he chose deceit over honesty. I didn't force him to cheat, to lie, or to misuse marital funds. I simply enforced the agreement we had both willingly signed. As for Stephen, he faded from my life, irrelevant. The man I had loved was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen a path of dishonesty. His affairs, his manipulations, his pleas, none of it mattered anymore. The narrative belonged to me now. In the quiet moments, I reflected on what this experience had taught me. Trust, once broken, is impossible to reconstruct fully. Strength is forged in fire, and clarity comes when you face betrayal with logic, strategy, and unwavering self-respect. Would I ever trust again? Eventually, but cautiously, carefully, and absolutely there would be a prenup in the future with clear, enforceable clauses protecting what I had built. Not out of cynicism, but from learned wisdom. Life moved forward, slowly at first. Days filled with work, long evenings with quiet reflection, and nights spent planning the next chapter. The past, the lies, the heartbreak, the stolen trust, remained a shadow, but no longer a shackle. Each time I checked the investment account, watched the automatic payments hit, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Not revenge, not gloating, but justice. The lesson was clear. Actions have consequences, choices matter, and integrity, once lost by another, can be reclaimed by you. And for me, Lucy, that reclamation was complete. The first morning in my new condo, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating every corner of a space that was entirely mine. No echoes of betrayal, no reminders of broken promises, just clarity, peace, and a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. I made coffee, watching the city wake, thinking about the months that had passed. Betrayal, shock, anger, strategy, courtroom battles, wage garnishments. Every moment had led to this, a life reclaimed. Each payment from Stephen hit the separate investment account, a small yet undeniable symbol that justice and my foresight had prevailed. I thought about the person I had been before discovering his infidelities, the hopeful, trusting Lucy. She had believed in love without reservation. But I was different now, smarter, stronger, tempered by fire, and yet, in this strength, I discovered something unexpected: freedom. Freedom to make choices without fear. Freedom to protect myself without guilt. Freedom to dream without someone else's deceit looming over me. A week later, I met a close friend for lunch. Over salads and quiet conversation, I realized how much I had grown. I no longer needed validation from anyone. The opinions, the judgments, even the whispers of friends and former acquaintances, irrelevant. What mattered was my life, my integrity, and the clarity of my path forward. People asked me about dating. I laughed softly, shaking my head. Not yet. Not soon. Trust had to be rebuilt, carefully, deliberately, and only when the stakes made sense. And if there were ever another prenup, there would absolutely be an infidelity clause again. Not because I expected betrayal, but because lessons learned the hard way are never forgotten. I began to focus entirely on my company, watching it grow even faster now that my energy was fully mine to invest. Strategies, client meetings, new software launches, each victory felt sweeter, each achievement a testament to resilience. No one had stolen my ambition. No one had diminished my capability. And then, in the quiet evenings, I reflected on what had truly been gained. It wasn't the money, though the enforced prenup ensured fairness and justice. It wasn't the legal victory, though it was satisfying to see truth prevail. It was the reclamation of self. The recognition that no one, not even someone I had loved deeply, could dictate my worth, my boundaries, or my dignity. I allowed myself a small smile as I walked through the condo, touching the walls that now held only memories I chose to keep. The past would never fully disappear, but it no longer dictated the present. I was free to build, to create, to thrive on my own terms. And in that freedom, a new story began. One without deceit, without betrayal, but with hope, clarity, and the unwavering knowledge that I had survived, strategized, and emerged stronger than ever. The city outside buzzed with life, and I stepped onto the balcony, letting the wind carry away the final traces of bitterness. It was a new day, a new beginning, and this time, the life I built, personally, professionally, emotionally, was fully, irrevocably mine. I was Lucy, and I was unstoppable.